Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Wilson, executive editor with Farm Futures Magazine, and we want to welcome you to our Farm Futures Virtual Summit. We're glad to have you here, and we have a very special guest with us today. His name is Gregg Doud. He's Vice President of Global Situation Awareness and the Chief Economist for Aimpoint Research. Previous to joining Aimpoint Research, Gregg served in the office of the U.S. Trade Representative as Chief Ag Negotiator with the rank of U.S. Ambassador, and he is going to be joining us live at the Farm Futures Business Summit to talk about some of his experiences. Gregg, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Let's start off just talking a little bit about how you got involved in the entire business of working at the White House, the U.S. Trade Office. What happened there, and how did you get into this job, and what were your experiences there?
Well, actually, I was called and asked if I would like to be a part of Ambassador Lighthizer team at USTR, and interviewed for the job just like any other job, and went through Senate confirmation through the Finance Committee, which was a very difficult and rigorous process that took actually 49 weeks to get through that process. So very happy to finally get on the job, and that I did for very nearly 3 years.
And what was it like to work at the U.S. Trade Representative's office? Were there some things that you were not ready for? I think one time before when we talked, you said this is kind of the job that you've been preparing for all your life. Was it what you expected?
Well, that's actually almost true, because I've been in Washington now nearly 30 years, 29 years in fact, and for most of that time been working on international trade issues in agriculture, whether it was U.S. wheat, World Perspectives, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, Senate Ag Committee. I had the trade portfolio. So I've been working on these issues for a long time, and in particular on the meat and beef side of the equation after BSE mad cow disease. So had a lot of experience working with the folks at USTR, knew them all very, very well. There are 16 folks there that are career professional staff that are the best of the best, absolutely excellent people. And you're a part of the White House team there when you're at USTR, an overall team at USTR of about 250 people. So it's really an extraordinary group of people, the best of the best, and a lot of fun to do that job.
Well, can you tell us a little bit more about your experience with the negotiations with China and how that all came about, and how did it all lead to the Phase 1 deal?
Well, the whole thing was really something that when we first started out, we had no idea where this conversation was going to go. Had no idea of what we were ultimately going to do other than have a conversation about all the challenges that we had. Throughout the course of a year, we had 33 negotiating sessions for the agricultural text. The Vice Minister of Agriculture and 30 or 40 or 50 of his best people, and myself and 20 or 30 of our best people across the U.S. government, USDA, FDA, Food Safety Inspection Service, obviously USTR, even at NOAA on seafood. We spent hundreds of hours together and sorted through what ended up being in the final agreement some 57 issues in agriculture, 57 structural changes that China agreed to make headway on. And today, what's really extraordinary about that is they've actually completed probably 52 or 3 or 4 of those things we've been successful on, and it has made an enormous change, as you can see, for U.S. ag exports to China.
I think most farmers would agree that the China sales to China have been extraordinary for their grain markets. Where do you see the future then? How's it going to be shaking out? And is the African swine fever hog herd rebuilding issue in China going to be a part of any changes, you think?
Well, I think that's the issue going forward. Is there are enormous changes occurring in China with the African swine fever ushering in a huge effort on their part to build more Western style confinement operations versus having pigs in the backyard. The major change there of the banning of swill feeding of hogs in China or feeding of food scraps uh, has ushered in a whole new era in terms of needs for feed grains in China. The changes in terms of market access that we have, particularly on the meat and dairy side, a big chunk of the agreement, we really worked on dairy as well. I think, we just saw the trade data for March. China's meat imports were an all-time record. Our exports to China on meat are extraordinary right now, beef, pork, and poultry across the board. I think that portends a really solid future for us across the board on the breadth of agricultural commodities and different things that we can sell China going forward.
Without getting too political, obviously we had a change of administration. I wondered if you think what your thoughts are about how China will China and the U.S. will, what kind of relationship we'll have with the Biden administration.
Well, I think that relationship overall geopolitically is really complicated.
Yeah.
And I think that there are some things that are going to be very difficult to work with on China going forward with regard to their state trading enterprises, their state subsidies, et cetera. But the other side of the equation is what we have in terms of the phase one agreement with China, I think will stand the test of time. I think it's very solid. I think both countries are very invested in that agreement, believe how important it is. And that will, we started in the discussion early on about, having a very tenuous relationship in trade. I actually now think what we've resolved here, at least the areas that we've resolved it, have developed into a pillar of our relationship now between the U.S. and China.
Well, just to wrap this up, and I really appreciate you being here with us today virtually, and looking forward to you being at the summit as well. Tell us a little bit, just give us your thoughts about other areas of the world where U.S. agriculture can really start looking forward to better trade opportunities.
Well, I think, when you look at USMCA, Canada, Mexico, look at one of the great trade deals of all time, as far as I'm concerned, is the deal that we did with Japan in agriculture. And then you look at the China deal, that's nearly half of U.S. ag exports were renegotiated, or in Kansas Farm Boy terms, overhauled during the 3 years that I was there. I think that's really amazing stretch of time that we've had in terms of trade and agriculture, in terms of negotiating. And I think the Japan deal in particular is something that is going to be absolutely critical for us going forward. So now we have to look at the next phase of this. I was disappointed that we didn't get a crack at the UK and setting down with them. But I think longer term, what we set in motion with regard to Kenya and trade in Africa is going to be absolutely critical to us in the years ahead. And I think regardless of your political persuasion in the U.S., you realize that the trade agenda that was set forward there is solid, and we're going to continue to work on it going forward.
Well, we know how important trade is to the U.S. agriculture economy, and farmers are hoping and looking forward to better trade deals down the road. And I'm sure on behalf of them, I'd like to say thank you for all of your work. And I really look forward to seeing you in person and at the summit. And I really appreciate you taking some time today. It's been Gregg Doud, Vice President of Global Situational Awareness, Chief Economist with Aimpoint Research. And he has been joining us today on our virtual Farm Futures Summit. Thank you very much, Gregg.
Thank you, Mike.